Hi guys. Good night everybody. Just let me know if you guys can hear me before we start, please. Alright guys, so we're gonna do a little session here on some sample questions, sample paper 1 questions for CSEC Chem, right? Let's get to right now. Let me just give you all a little guidance here when it comes to the chemistry paper 1. Right? When it comes to the chemistry paper 1, you guys need to read your questions very carefully, right? So chemistry is one of those subjects where the questions can be very tricky, and you have to be careful in terms of how you're answering some of these questions, right? So we're gonna go through some sample questions here, right? They're not taken from any one particular paper, right? Any one particular paper, right? But what we're gonna do, we're gonna basically, one second. Right? Yeah, basically what we're gonna do, so it's questions from different papers, right? Not one specific paper, right? Yeah, all the questions, basically all the questions gonna repeat, you know, guys, right? But practically all the questions gonna repeat in that exam tomorrow, right? So I don't have the questions numbered here, right? But I'm gonna just put, let's call this Q1, right? So here's what we're gonna do, right? What I want you all to do is to put the question number that I write here, and you're gonna just put what the answer is, or what you think the answer is, right? So for the first one, Q1, you're gonna put Q1 and whether the answer is A, B, C, or D, and I'm gonna tell you why the answer is that, right? So the arrangement of electrons of X and Y are 285 and 286 respectively. Which of the following represents X and Y, right? So you're gonna put Q1 and what you think is the answer in the chat for me, please, right? Now for chemistry, there will. AdMaths is a different story, right? AdMaths is a different story. AdMaths is relatively new, right? You only have 3 exam papers that could have come from the AdMaths. That's 2021, 22, and 23. That's it, right? But for chemistry, any one of those papers can come, right? So question 1, I'm seeing a lot of people saying the answer is A. Let's see if that's really true. So here's how we're going to analyze a question like this, right? So we have 285 and you have 286. Right? Those are the electronic configurations regarding these elements here. Now the thing is, what you're gonna do, you're gonna look to see what group they belong to. So element X belongs to group 5 and element Y belongs to group 6. Now what I normally tell my class to do is to learn the periodic table. Remember, we're supposed to know the first 20 elements, right? And we normally learn them by group. So in group 5, we know we have nitrogen and phosphorus, right? In group 6, we have oxygen and sulfur. When you think about those elements there, basically those elements are actually non-metal, right? And a non-metal. So that's the answer that we're looking for here. Non-metal, which in this case is going to be A. Now the thing is, sometimes what they do, they change up the order of the answers. So keep that in mind, right? So don't just learn off answers. Make sure you know how to get the answer. What about question 2? Which of the following substances can a solid be obtained by the process of sedimentation? Right? Which of the following substances can a solid be obtained by the process of sedimentation? What are they talking about there? What's the answer for that one? right? A lot of people saying the answer is D, right? A lot of people saying the answer is D. Is that true? Yeah, it is a suspension. So you all need to know examples of suspensions. So things like chalk and water is a good example, right? Or even sand and water. If you shake it up and you leave it to settle, right? What's going to happen is that the solid particles are going to settle at the bottom, right? So the answer is going to be D, right? So that's question 2. Third question here now, right? That's question 3, and this one is question 4, right? So the third question, from the table below, which of the substances represented by the options A, B, C, and D is most likely sodium chloride, right? So you all need to know the properties of sodium chloride. So they're looking at boiling point, electrical conductivity. Which one is the answer for question 3? Right? So let's put Q3 and the number and the answer, right? So I'll know which answer you're referring to. So a lot of people saying the answer is C. Let's see if that's correct. So let's see if C is correct. Now, sodium chloride, which is NaCl, right? This is an ionic compound, right? So this is an ionic compound here. So therefore, we expect the boiling point to be very high, right? So the boiling point has to be high. So therefore, it could potentially be 2600 or it could be 1465. Right? Those are the two highest numbers. Now, in terms of electrical conductivity, in the solid state, an ionic compound does not conduct electricity, right? So this is looking hopeful here, right? Does not conduct electricity. In an aqueous state, if I take sodium chloride and I dissolve it in water, it is going to be a conductor. So yes, the answer is going to be yes for this. So therefore, C makes the most sense to me here, right? C makes the most sense. What about question 4? Right? Which of the following movements depicts Brownian motion? Which of the following depicts Brownian motion? Question 4. What you all think about this one? Right, so the majority of you all saying the answer is A. Let's see what's happening here now. Right, pollen grains moving at random. So Brownian motion, two examples of Brownian motion would be pollen grains on water. That's one example. So we know the answer has to be A. Second example is shining light through a smoke cell. Right, those are two examples that demonstrate Brownian motion. Right. This B here, that's osmosis. Scent of perfume traveling in a room, that's diffusion, right? Movement of sugar particles in the bloodstream through the intestinal wall, that's also some kind of movement here, right? So that's number 4. Question 5 and question 6. What about question 5 here? We have a graph, right? And it's a heating curve of some substance, during which portion of the curve is the substance a liquid only? During which portion of the curve is the substance a liquid only? Right, so that's a heating curve. You all need to know how a heating curve looks. So question 5. Which one is the answer for question 5? Alright, so this one, the majority of you all saying the answer is C. So this is a heating curve, right? So that means that in this section here, right, section 1, that's solid, right? And this here is going to be liquid, right? And this stage 2 here, is where melting is taking place. So you have a combination of solid and liquid. So two phases exist when we have melting taking place. So the only section that has only a liquid is going to be the third section, which is going to be C, right? The answer is going to be C. What about question 6? The mass number of an element is the number of particles in the nucleus of an atom of that element. Particles refer to what? Question 6. What do you all think is the answer for that one? Right, seeing a lot of C's here. Let's see if that's true, right? So they're talking about mass number, right? They're talking about mass number. So mass number is simply the number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus of an atom. So we're looking at protons and neutrons, so the answer is C. Yep, I agree, right? I agree with that. So that's question 6. Question 7. We have an equation here, right, that may seem unfamiliar, but they want us to balance this chemical equation, right? Question 7. What do you all think the answer is for this? All right, let's see what people have in here as the answer. A lot of people saying B, some people saying D is the answer, right? So this is what we need to do here. We need to balance this chemical equation, right? So we have K OH, right, plus 3Br2, right, produces something KBr, right, plus KBrO3 plus 3H2. So this is the chemical equation here, right? And what we need to do, we need to balance it. Now, if you look at the numbers here, we only have two options, right? It could either be a 5 and a 6, 6 or 5, or 5 or 6, right? If we look at the keys, right, where we have letters here, and we have a letter here, right? And a lot of people in the chat, right, they're saying that the answer is, let's see, right? A lot of people saying B, some people saying D. Let's see which one is really correct. If we put a 6 here, right, and we put a 5 here, does that make sense? Let's see. We have 6 potassium on the left. On the right hand side, you have 5 and 1, 6. Not looking okay so far. In terms of oxygen, we have 6 here. And on the right hand side, we have 3 and 3. So we have 6. So the oxygen balances. In terms of hydrogen, we have 1 and, we have 6, and we have 6 here. So the hydrogen balances. And then we have 6 Brs, right? And then we have a 5 here, and we have 1 here. Yeah, so those numbers make sense, right? So those of you saying 6 and 5, that makes sense. So the answer looks like it's going to be B, right? Any objections to that? Right? So that's the answer for that one, B. What about question 8 here? Right? What about question 8 here? The quantity 1 mole of atoms of an element refers to the mass of what? The quantity 1 mole of atoms of an element refers to the mass of what? What are you talking about here? Question 8. Right, a lot of people saying the answer is B. Let's see if that makes sense. The element which contains, yeah, that based on the statements here, the only one that makes sense is going to be B, right? That makes sense. So that's question 8. Question 9. Which of the following best describes the formation of a metallic bond? Right? A metallic bond is formed when what? Question 9. Right? A lot of people saying the answer is C. Let's see if that makes sense. So we're talking about metallic bonding, right? When it comes to metallic bonding, basically we have positive metal ions or cations, right? And they held together by a sea of negative electrons. That's typically how we describe the metallic bonding, right? We have positive metal ions or cations, and they held together by a sea of negative electrons. So cations held together. So C makes the most sense, right? C makes the most sense. So the answer is C, right? What about question 10? I know students generally, they're not fond of moles, right? But the mass concentration of potassium chloride is 60 gram per dm cube. What is the mass of potassium chloride in 25 cm cube? Question 10. Question 10, people getting C as the answer. Let's see if that makes sense. So I have never taught my class any formulas when it comes to moles, right? And I have never used any formula when it comes to moles, right? So basically the concentration of the potassium chloride is 60 gram per dm cube. So that means that 1000, right, cm cube, right, of your potassium chloride contains 60 grams, right? That's what's happening here. So based on the concentration data, it means that 1000 cm cube contains 60 grams. So therefore, I need to figure out how much is 25 cm cube. So to work that out, we're just going to cross multiply. So that's going to be 25 multiplied by 60 divided by 1000. And that is going to give me 25 by 60 divided by 1000, and you're going to get 1.5, right? So this is going to be 1.5 grams, right? So the answer is C. So guys, just remember, when it comes to the chemistry multiple choice, you can work with a calculator. So don't forget your calculator. Make sure, right? Make sure that you want to do that, right? Right, so that's question 10, right? Let's call this question 11. Let's call this question 12, right? And let's call this question 13, right? What about question 11? We have barium is below calcium in group 2 of the periodic table. When these metals react with water, the main differences in observation is what? Question 11. Right, for those of you who came in late, just put Q11 and put your answer, right? So I'll know which questions you'll answer it, right? right? So when it comes to group 2, right? When it comes to group 2 and reactions with group 2, so let's say calcium. Let's say we take calcium, right? So calcium plus water, right? What's going to happen here is that we're going to get hydroxide, which is calcium hydroxide, right? Plus H2 gas, right? So that's what we're going to get when we react a group 2 element with water, right? This equation is not balanced. We need to put a 2 here. Now, both of them, barium as well as calcium, both of them going to produce hydrogen gas, right? So hydrogen gas is going to be evolved in both of them, right? In terms of the rate of reaction, let's come back to that. The color of the product. The product that we're going to get here is calcium hydroxide, which is typically whitish. Barium hydroxide is also going to be whitish. So they're going to have the same color, right? Change with litmus. In both instances, you're going to produce an alkaline solution. So therefore, you're going to get the same color change with both of them. However, when it comes to group 2, your rate of reaction changes. So group 2 has beryllium, magnesium, calcium, and they told us that barium is below. When it comes to group 2, reactivity increases down the group, right? So the rate of reaction is going to be different. So the answer is going to be B, right? The answer is B. What about question 12? Graphite can be used as a lubricant because of what? Why can graphite be used as a lubricant? What you all think is that one? Question 12. Right, I've seen a lot of B's. Let's see if that's correct. So when it comes to graphite, so graphite is made up of these hexagonal layers, and these layers have weak forces between them, and that is the reason why we use them as a lubricant, because the layers are able to slide past each other. So it's going to be weak attraction among the hexagonal layers, so the answer is going to be B. Yeah, the answer is B. Oh, sorry. Question 13. Which of the following halogens is a liquid at room temperature? Question 13. Which of the following, right, is a liquid at room temperature, right? So according to your syllabus, you have to know group 7, and we know we have fluorine, right? Now fluorine exists as F2, chlorine exists as Cl2, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and then we have I2, right? These two on top here, they are gases, right? This one here is a liquid, right? And then the last one here is a solid. So when you go down group 7, the phase changes from gas to liquid to solid. But bromine is the only one that's a liquid at room temperature. So that's correct. So that's question 13. Question 14. Question 15. And question 16. Right? So question 14. A solution has a pH of 1. The solution is expected to do what? Question 14. Right, a lot of people saying the answer is A. Let's see what's happening here. So usually those chem questions are pretty loaded. So if you see a solution has a pH of 1, that tells us something. That tells us that this here is an acid, right? It's an acid. So they want to know when you take that solution and you react it with these things here, what's going to happen. So zinc metal to produce hydrogen. That's sounding correct to me, because when you take metal and you react it with an acid, you're going to get salt and you're going to get hydrogen gas. So A makes sense, right? A makes sense to me, right? Any others looking kind of off key here? Now, A should be the answer. What about question 15, right? What I did, I pulled some of the tricky questions from some of these papers. We have some acids here, right? H2SO4, CH3COH, COOH taken twice. Which of the above acids require more than 1 mole of NaOH for complete neutralization? Question 15. Right, a lot of people have B as the answer, right? Are looking correct. Let's see what's happening here. So when it comes to neutralization, and this could also come as a question, neutralization is essentially H plus OH minus, right, giving us H2. This essentially is what neutralization is, right? Now when it comes to H2SO4, right, you have 2 moles of hydrogen, right? In the formula you have H2, so therefore you require 2 OH minus to neutralize that, right? So that one is 1 for sure. When it comes to ethanoic acid here, right, ethanoic acid looks like this, right? But in terms of neutralization, right, what is actually reacting here, right, is going to be this H here. So that's only 1 H. So that's why this can't be an answer. Now check this, if you look and you realize, wait, 2 can be an answer, it means this out, it means this out, it means this out, and automatically I've figured out that the answer has to be B, right? But this structure here, this C, the structure looks like this. So it's a diacid, right? It has 2 acid groups in it, right? So that's why it requires 2 moles of NaOH in order to neutralize this thing here, right? So the answer is 2 and 3. What about question 16? In the electrolysis of copper 2 sulfate using copper electrodes, right, the anode does what? Somebody's asking if calcium oxide is a drying agent. Yep, it's a drying agent that we use for ammonia gas. Right, people saying the answer is A. Let's check that. So when it comes to electrolysis, so what I normally do when I'm analyzing a question like this, I need to draw it, right? I need to draw to see what's happening here. So basically we have our electrolytic cell. This is our anode here, right? And they told us in the question that the anode and electrode, or the electrodes, are copper. So we have our electrolyte here, which is copper 2 sulfate, right? And we have copper electrodes. So what's happening here in this particular electrolysis, right? So the Cu2 plus from solution is going to go here. So therefore the cathode is going to increase in mass. At the same time, the anode is going to go into solution, right? So the mass of the anode is going to decrease, right? That's one of the observations here. The mass of the anode is going to decrease. That's what they asked us about. What's happening to the anode? So the answer is A. Question 17, question 18. Right? So question 17. A solution, when reacted with the gas sulfur dioxide, becomes green. The solution contains what? Question 17. What are you talking about here? Right, to question 17, I've seen a lot of people saying the answer is C, right? Yes, dichromate 6, right? The fact that it became green here, right? Potassium dichromate 6 is an orange solution, right? And when it behaves as an oxidizing agent, it is reduced. In that reduction process, it changes from orange to green. So this green here is kind of hinting as to the fact that it should be the dichromate ion. What about question 18? Which of the following statements below is true for the following equation? So we have a metal reacting with sulfuric acid, and we want to know in terms of oxidation state what is happening. Question 18. Right, a lot of people saying the answer is B. So let's check this, right? So if I had to analyze a question like this, what I will do, I'll write the oxidation state for all of these things in my chemical reaction here, right? Now, what do I mean by that? So magnesium, right, has an oxidation state or oxidation number of 0, right? Because one of the rules says that for an element in its standard state, the oxidation number is 0, right? Now, when we look at the H2SO4 now, right, the sulfuric acid, let's see, are they doing anything with it? All right, so the sulfuric acid here has, the H has an oxidation state of +1. Now, when you go across to the right-hand side here, magnesium in magnesium sulfate is +2, and hydrogen in hydrogen gas is 0, right? So those are the oxidation states there for the ones of importance. So when we look at part A, magnesium is reduced to from oxidation state 2 to 0. That's not true. Magnesium is going from 0 to +2, right? That's a change in oxidation state there. The magnesium is oxidized, right, from oxidation state 0 to +2. So that makes sense, right? So the answer is going to be B. What about question 19? During the electrolysis of aqueous copper 2 sulfate solution using inert electrodes, the ions migrated to the cathode, are what? Question 19. I'm not sure exactly what years I pull them from, right? But several different papers here, I kind of picked out the questions that some students generally have some trouble with. Right, so if you guys haven't done so as yet, please remember to hit like and subscribe to this channel, right? I know I have the chemistry channel out there, but I'm trying to consolidate, right, into one channel rather than having multiple channels on YouTube, right? So question 19, I'm seeing a lot of people saying D is the answer. So when you have to analyze an electrolysis, right? So we have aqueous copper 2 sulfate. So that's CuSO4, right? So the two ions present here will be Cu2 plus, right? And we also have SO4 minus, right? So those are ions present there. Now the fact that we have an aqueous solution, it means that water is present, right? So the water is going to produce H plus ions, and it's also going to produce OH minus ions. Now they want to know what ions migrate towards the cathode. Now the cathode is your negative electrode. So when it comes to the negative electrode, positive ions are going to move there. So therefore the Cu2 plus and the H plus are going to move there, right? So that's going to be D, right? So the answer is going to be D for this one here. Right, so that's 19, 20, 21. Right, question 20. Which of the following statements about electrolysis is not correct? Right, when you guys see questions like this in the exam, underline so you don't get confused. They said which of the following is not correct about electrolysis. Question 20. Right, so people saying the answer is C. So they said which is not correct. Electrons leave the solution via the positive electrode, right? Electrons leave. So again, if I have to analyze this, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to draw a simple diagram so that I can understand exactly what is happening. So this is my basic electrolytic cell, right? Now, if this is your positive terminal, negative terminal, right? So in terms of the current flows this way. However, electrons are going to flow in that direction though, right? Electrons flow in the opposite direction. So let's see. Electrons leave the solution via the positive electrode. So this statement looks correct because electrons, right, they're moving this way. They're moving towards the anode, right? So that statement is true. Electrons enter the solution via the negative electrode. That's also true. So from the negative electrode, you're entering the solution here. The decomposition of the electrolyte at the electrode produces an electric current. Let's think about that. Let's look at C and D. Decomposition of the electrolyte at the electrode is due to the electric current. This is true. So this statement here does not make sense. C is the answer for question 20. Right? C is the answer for question 20. What about 21? 21 should be a very easy question. How many coulombs of electricity passes through an electrolyte when a current of 100 amps flows for 10 minutes? What's the answer for 21? 21 is an easy question. Everybody should get this correct. Right, I've seen people getting D as the answer. Does that make sense? So this should be an easy question here. Q is equal to I multiplied by T. That's the formula we're going to use here. So the current in this case is 100 amps multiplied by the time. So it's 10 minutes. But you have to remember to convert the 10 minutes to seconds. So that's 10 by 60. So this 10 by 60 is converting the 10 minutes into seconds. Right? So that's going to be 6,0,1,2,3 coulombs. So the answer is D. What about 22? Right? What about 22? The rate of a chemical reaction does not depend on what? Right, so what people get in here? Alright, so this is 22 here. Which of the following, again, when it comes to these questions here, underline or circle, you can write on the multiple choice paper if you need to, right? The rate of a chemical reaction does not depend on what? So when it comes to rate of a chemical reaction or reaction rate, it depends on temperature. I can increase the rate of reaction by increasing temperature. I can use a catalyst. I can increase concentration. I can use pressure, right? So there are several ways I can speed up a chemical reaction. So does not depend. Of course, it depends on a catalyst. Yep. Concentration of reactants. Yep. Energy change of the overall reaction. Well, this don't make sense. C not making sense. Temperature of the reactant system. So the answer for this one should be C, right? The answer should be C. Right? I've seen a lot of people asking about CAPE here, right? Because of my schedule, I just yeah, because I'm doing my schedule is so tight, I can't even offer CAPE. I can't personally teach you CAPE classes, right? Right, so that's 22, right? That's 22. This one here is 23, and this one here is 24. What about 23? When crystals of potassium nitrate are dissolved in water, the temperature of the solution decreases because. So this is a very loaded question here, right? This is a very loaded question. Right, so this is question 23. What you all think is that one? Right, a lot of people getting easy answer, right? So here's how you're going to analyze this. So they told us something about the temperature. So the temperature, right, decreases. So once you see there's a drop in temperature, that's an endothermic reaction. So the thought process is like this. It's an endothermic reaction, right? So that means that it's absorbing energy from the surroundings here, right? Now, when it comes to an endothermic reaction, if I were to draw an energy profile diagram for an endothermic reaction, basically we have our reactants here, and when it's an endothermic reaction, the energy of the products will be more than the energy of the reactant, right? Now let's see what the answers look like. So the energy required to break down the crystal structure of the potassium nitrate. Yeah, that's true, but heat is always absorbed when a substance is dissolved. Nope, that's not true. Water absorbs the energy from the potassium nitrate. No, that's not what happened in here. The energy content of the dissolved potassium nitrate is lower than the solid. This is also wrong, so the answer has to be E, right? The answer is going to be E for question 23, right? So you all are correct. What about question 24? Which of the following pairs of substances is most suitable for producing carbon dioxide, right? Which of the following pairs of substances is most suitable for producing carbon dioxide? Right, I've seen a lot of E's, right? A lot of E's. So they said most. Again, underline, circle, make sure you understand what is being asked. So if you want to produce carbon dioxide, right, the typical method we use for preparing carbon dioxide is to take hydrochloric acid and react it with calcium carbonate, right? So when you take an acid and you react it with a carbonate, you get a salt, you get water, and you get carbon dioxide. So the answer is E, right? So one is 25 here. Which of the following metals can displace zinc from a solution of zinc sulfate? Question 25. Yes, the live will be up. Yeah, once it's here, it's gonna be up, right? All right. So question 25. Most people saying the answer is D. Let's check that. So here's what's going on here. When it comes to a question like this, you all need to know your reactivity series, right? So whatever method you have to remember it, you need to know it. It's this. Right? So you all need to know the order of the reactivity series. So when you go down the group, reactivity decreases. Now, when it comes to displacement reactions, metals higher up in the reactivity series are able to displace metals lower down in the reactivity series, right? So you want to displace zinc. So this is where we target in here. If you want to displace zinc, any metal above here will displace zinc, right? So let's see, iron is below, so this is out. Lead is also below, so this is out. Copper is also below, that's out. But if you notice something here, aluminium is directly above zinc, so therefore it's able to displace it. So the answer is D, right? The answer is D. Right? I'm just going to change these numbers here. Right? So let's call this question 26, and let's call this question 27. Right? So we have some metals here, W, X, Y, and Z. And we have some reactions here with water and steam. And then we have products formed when the nitrate is heated, right? The order of reactivity of these metals with the most reactive first. What about 26? Right, I see somebody gave an acronym there. Right, whatever acronym you want to remember it, you just make sure you know the reactivity series. Right? Right, so question 26, I've seen a lot of D's coming in. Let's see if that makes sense, right? So what you could do, right, you can look at this column here and you can look at this column here, right? Now, you're reacting the metal with water or steam. Now, W, right, W has no reaction with water. So that tells me that W is very unreactive, right? So that's what this tells me here. Now, X reacts with steam, but not cold water, right? So that means X is reactive, right? But it's not so reactive that it reacts with cold water. If I look at the others here, you realize that Y reacts rapidly with cold water. So therefore, based on the observations here, Y seems to be the most reactive. The fact that it could react with cold water. In the case of Z reacts slowly with cold water, but it's still reacting with cold water. So therefore, Z comes next. And then in the case of X reacts with steam, but not cold water. The fact that you need steam here in order to react it with X, it means that X is less reactive than Z. So this is the order that we're looking for here. It should be Y, Z, X, W. So the answer is going to be D. That's the answer, right? What about the next one here? Question 27. Which of these metals forms a carbonate which is stable to heat? Which forms a carbonate which is stable to heat? So this question is testing your concept about metals, right? That's what it's doing. Right, I've seen some of my students who are in my online classes here. Some of you guys getting some questions wrong here, guys. What's up with that? Right, so when it comes to a nitrate, let's see, can I write this here? Yeah. Right, let's say we have nitrates and we have carbonates, right? In terms of sodium nitrate, right? So let's say potassium nitrate and sodium nitrate. When you try to heat these here, what happens is that we get a nitrite and oxygen gas, right? So that's what you're going to get when you heat a nitrate. So therefore, this element here, or this metal Y, could be potassium or it could be sodium, right? Now, when it comes to a carbonate, right? So sodium carbonate and potassium carbonate, they are very stable, right? So if you try to heat it, it's not going to decompose. So the answer has to be C in this case here. Question 27, the answer is C. Right? So that's 27. Question 28 and question 29. Right? So question 28. Which of the following substances forms dense white fumes with ammonia gas? What are they talking about here for question 28? Right, which of the following forms dense white fumes with ammonia gas? What's the answer for that one? Question 28. Right, a lot of people getting D as the answer. Yep, that looking correct to me. Right, it is D. So what's happening here when it comes to ammonia gas? That's NH3 plus HCl gas, right? You get this dense white fume here, and that fume there is ammonium chloride, NH4Cl, right? That's your dense white fumes that you're going to get. So the answer is D. What about question 29? Which of the following observations is likely when excess ammonia is added to a solution of copper 2 sulfate and the mixture is shaken? Question 29. What are we looking at here? So this one here, one or two people getting it wrong. So remember, when it comes to qualitative analysis, in school you all would have used sodium hydroxide and you would have used ammonium hydroxide or aqueous ammonia, right? Those are reagents that we use to test for cations, right? Now, they said that we're using copper 2 sulfate, right? Now, when you add aqueous ammonia to copper 2 sulfate, you're going to get a blue precipitate, right? Copper 2 ions are blue, but if you notice, they put this here in excess. They put it in capital here for you. When you add excess ammonia, right, to copper 2 ions, what happens is that you get a deep blue solution, right? You get what we call a complex solution, right? So the answer is going to be C. It's a deep blue solution, right? So that's 29. Question T, right? They gave you a compound here and it's reacting with bromine, Br2, and it's giving you a compound X. Which one is the correct formula? Question 30. Alright, question 30. Alright, I've seen a lot of people saying D is the answer. So you're reacting an alkene, and this is an alkene because it has a double bond, right? But what you have to keep in mind here, the Br has to attach itself here and here. So that's why this can't be the answer, this can't be the answer, this can't be the answer. The answer has to be D. That bromine has to attach itself to the same carbons where the double bond is going to disappear, right? So the bromine is attaching here and it's attaching here. So the answer has to be D. What about question 31? Which of the following molecules could be obtained by cracking the alkane C8H18? Alright, question 31. Right, so a lot of people saying the answer is B. So your starting material is C8H18, right? And we're trying to do cracking on this here. So when you crack a molecule, you should get something that is going to be smaller than this. And one of the products that we're going to get is an alkene. You must get an alkene being produced, right? And the formula for an alkene is CnH2n. That's the general formula. So C2H4, that is an alkene, so that's a possibility. We could get that. C6H14, that's an alkane. Yes, we could get that. C16, if you're starting off with C8H18, then there's no way we're going to get this as one of the products. So it's going to be 1 and 2, which is going to be B. The answer is going to be B, right? So that's 31. Question 32. What's the answer for that one? Which of the following compounds can form a polymer? Question 32. Alright, people saying A is the answer. Let's see what's happening here. So if you want to form a polymer, we have two kinds of polymers. We have addition and we have condensation. So based on what we have here, the only one that can form a polymer is ethene. So this will form an addition polymer, right? Question 33. Which of the following substances is a product of the halogenation reaction with methane? So people getting C as the answer. Yeah, it is going to be C, and here's why. So if you have CH4, right, and you're reacting that with chlorine gas, right? Now the only way this is going to react with chlorine gas is with UV light. So you're going to get a substitution reaction. So you will get something like CH3Cl, right? That's a substitution reaction. Plus one of the products will be HCl, right? So it's hydrogen chloride. So that's question 33. Question 34 and question 35, right? So question 34. The functional group present in carboxylic acid is what? What's the answer for 34 here? Which functional group is present in a carboxylic acid? Right, just now, let's back up a second. Hold on, some people saying 31. Let's go back. Hold on. Question 31 you all asking about? Let me see what you all saying. Oh, no, 31 is correct, right? 31 is correct. I don't know what you all saying here, but 31 is correct, right? Back up here now. So question 34, that's what I was asking. Question 34, people are getting B as the answer. Right, let's see that making sense. So acid group, yep, they just draw it kind of funny. But the acid group basically looks like this. You have a double bond and an OH. But what they did, they draw it a little different, right? What about 35? A polyamide is formed by a condensation reaction between a molecule containing what? So you want to form a polyamide. Question 35. Yes. Yeah, I started to doubt myself. I want to know if I give you all a wrong answer. Right, question 35. These are the kinds of questions that people get wrong in the exam, because they can't remember certain things about polymers, right? Alright, so a lot of people tell me the answer is A, right? So when it comes to, so they said it's a condensation polymerization, right? And it's a polyamide. So when it comes to a polyamide, the amide linkage is going to be present. You all need to know what this is. This is what the amide linkage looks like. If you want to form an amide linkage, what you need to have an acid group, right? And you also need to have what we call the amine group, which is this, right? But if you want to make it a polymer, it means that you must have at least one COH and another containing at least one NH2, right? So the answer so far looks like A as the answer for question 35, right? So the answer is E, right? Are y'all getting trouble with the audio? Let me see something here. I haven't seen anything wrong. The stream says excellent. I'm not sure why the audio going in and out. Maybe it's me talking, right? Maybe it's me talking. Right, that's question 35. Question 36. Right, and question 37. Right, question 36. The compound ethene is described as unsaturated. This means that what? What do they mean by unsaturated? Question 36. Right, a lot of people getting D as the answer. Let's check that and see if that's making sense. So compound ET, right? So it's unsaturated. So basically, unsaturated compounds, they will have carbon to carbon single bonds. Double bonds, sorry. Carbon to carbon double bonds, right? So let's see, carbon. Right, so the answer should be D, right? The answer should be D. We're looking for double bonds here, right? Question 37. Nylon is a macromolecule which is held together by the same linkage as a protein molecule. What is the name given to this type of linkage? What are you talking about here for question 37? Alright, so a lot of people saying the answer is A, right? I agree, right? So nylon, right? Nylon and proteins have what we call the amide linkage, right? Nylons and protein, they contain what we call the amide linkage, right? Now, when it comes to the amide linkage looks like this. Right? So that's why nylon and protein, they are called a polyamide, right? It's called a polyamide, right? So that's 37, right? That's 38, and this is 39, right? So question 38, which of the following compounds can decolorize potassium manganate 7? Which of the following can decolorize potassium manganate 7? Right? What do you all think is the answer for question 38? Right? I've seen people getting A as the answer. Let's see if that makes sense. So decolorize potassium manganate 7, right? So I'm now watching this question here. This question has a slightly different slant here, right? I've seen other questions where this group here, right? This was put in here to kind of fool some students, but this group here is your carboxylic acid group here. Some students might just watch this and they might see an OH, because the thing is KMNO4 can react with an alcohol. This is not an alcohol, it's an acid, right? But it can also react with an alkene to give us a compound like this, something called a diol, right? So this is what you could get here when you react ethene with KMNO4, right? You get something called ethane 1,2-diol, right? So that's E, right? That's E. Question 39. Which of the following processes provide evidence of the particulate nature of matter? What are you talking about here? Question 39. Somebody's asking about the colorless, purple to colorless. Yes, when it comes to KMNO4, it goes from purple to colorless. It's an oxidizing agent, right? It's an oxidizing agent. So question 39. Right, people saying the answer is D. Let's see if that's making sense. So when it comes to particulate nature of matter, right? So filtration is out, right? Diffusion, yes, right? Osmosis, yes, right? Capillarity, no. So the answer is going to be 2 and 4, right? Now be careful when you're choosing your answers, eh? So it's 2 and 4, so the answer is D. Right, this one is question 40 and question 41. Right, question 40. An atom that has 20 electrons when it ionizes has the same electronic configuration as what? I'm sure you guys have seen this question somewhere before. So question 40. What do you all think is the answer here? Right? Right? A lot of people tell me the answer is A. Let's make sure the answer is A. So this here is 20 electrons, right? So the electronic configuration is 2, 8, 8, that's 8 and 2, 10 and 18 and 220, right? So this is the electronic configuration. When this ionizes, what happens here is that it's going to lose 2 electrons to give me 2, 8, 8, right? Now, what happens when an element gains or loses electrons? It forms a stable electronic configuration. So when it comes to our noble gases, we have helium, neon, argon. So helium, right, is 2, neon is 2, 8, and argon is 2, 8, 8. So if you notice, when that element with 20 electrons loses 2 electrons, it forms 288, and when it 288 is the same electronic configuration for argon. So the answer is E, right? The answer is E. What about question 41? We have sodium 24, sodium 23 are isotopes because it's a strange question though. Question 41. What you all think? No, guys, the answer for question 40 is going to be argon. It's air, right? So if it comes tomorrow, don't make that mistake. Right, so a lot of people saying the answer is C for this one. Let's see if that making sense. All right, so we have sodium 24, sodium 23, and they are isotopes because they conduct electricity. That doesn't make them an isotope. Reacts vigorously with water. Doesn't make them an isotope. Have the same number of protons. Yeah, that's something good. Have the same relative atomic. So the thing is, isotopes have the same atomic number but different mass number. And also, when it comes to isotopes, they have similar chemical properties, but their physical properties, they differ, right? So that's question 41. Question 42. I saw some students were asking about this particular question here. Which of the following pairs represents equal quantities of atoms, right? Equal quantities of atoms. So this one is based on moles, right? This one is based on moles here. Question 42. Yes, I agree. Question 41, I agree C is a weird answer. Right? I agree. But it is C. Right? What about this one here? This one is a mole calculation here, right? A lot of people saying the answer is D. I don't know if you saw the question before, but so we have 12 grams of carbon. So let's say carbon has a mass of 12, right? So therefore, when it comes to this here, right, the same equal quantities of atoms. So we can look at it in terms of moles. So this is actually 1 mole, right? In the case of sulfur, the mass number for sulfur is 32. But if you have 16 grams, it means that you're going to have half a mole, right? 0.5. 0.5 moles. Right? When it comes to sodium, the mass number for sodium is 23. So therefore, this is exactly 1 mole. Right? And then when it comes to magnesium, the mass number for magnesium is 24. So if you have 12, it's going to be half of that. Right? So now we know the number of moles for each set that we have here. So this one and this one will be the same. So that's 1 and 3. Right? Or we could have 2 or 4. So 1 and 3 or 2 and 4. Right? So 2 and 4 seems to be the correct answer. So the answer should be D. Right? Right? So that's 42. This one here is 43. Right? Question 43. An ion with a single negative charge may be converted to a neutral atom by doing what? What's the answer for 43? Right? People are saying the answer is C. Yeah, that's sounding incorrect to me, right? It'll lose an electron. Because when you form a negative charge, what happens there is that the atom would have gained one electron. So take for example chlorine. Chlorine will form a negative ion by gaining one electron, right? So if you want to convert it back to a neutral, you have to lose that electron. What about question 44? A separating funnel can be used to separate a mixture of what? A separating funnel can be used to separate a mixture of what? Let's talk more there. All right, I've seen a lot of people getting B as the answer. Yeah, it's going to be water and kerosene. So we use a separating funnel, right, for two liquids that are immiscible, right? They can't mix. So oil and water, kerosene and water, yeah, that's going to work. Question 45. Which of the following substances, when added to pure water, significantly increases the water's conductivity? Which of the following substances, when added to pure water, significantly increases the water's conductivity? Right? Question 45. Right, I've seen a lot of D's. So, graphite. Graphite is insoluble in water. So it's not, even though it's a conductor, it's not going to dissolve in water. Right? Iron 2 hydroxide, insoluble in water. Copper 2 hydroxide, insoluble in water. Sodium chloride, very soluble in water, and it will increase the conductivity significantly. That's like seawater, right? Question 46, we kind of did this before. Which one is a liquid? So we know bromine is the answer for this one here, right? So let's leave that out. Question 47 and question 48. Right? Question 47. A weak acid is best described as one that what? Right? Question 47. A weak acid is one that what? Which of the following best describes what a weak acid is? Alright, people getting the answer as being D. See if that makes sense. Right, so they said best, right? So when it comes to a weak acid, you can have a weak acid like ethanoic acid, which is CH3COH, and this ionizes here, right? But it's a reversible reaction. You get CH3COO minus plus H plus, right? That's what you get there. So basically, it's partial ionization taking place. And when it comes to acidity, we're looking at how much H plus ions we have. So a low concentration of hydrogen ions in aqueous solution. The answer is going to be D, right? Question 48. Which of the following methods may be used in the preparation of barium sulfate? What are they talking about here? which method, right, is going to be used, right, in order to prepare barium sulfate. So 48. Right, lots of correct answers. Everybody tell me the answer is C. Yeah, the answer is going to be C. I agree. Right, and the reason why the answer is C is because barium sulfate is an insoluble salt. Right, barium sulfate is insoluble. Right, so if you want to prepare an insoluble salt, what we do, we normally use precipitation. All you need to do is to mix two soluble salts and then you're going to get it. Right, so that was 48. This one is 49. And this one here is 50. Right, so question 49. Which of the following statements describes acid salts? What is the answer for 49? Right, so 49 has seen a lot of C's. Let's see if that's making sense. So when it comes to an acid salt, for those of you who don't know, we have two kinds of salts. We have normal salts. So if you have something like Na2SO4, that's a normal salt. But if I have something like NaHSO4, that's an acid salt, right? So this is a normal salt, right? And this here is an acid salt. Right, so the acid salt has hydrogen present inside of it, right? It has hydrogen present inside of it. So they said which statements describe acid salts? Their anions cannot dissociate to give hydrogen ions. When they're talking about the anion there, they're talking about this HSO4 minus. That's what they're talking about there. And they're saying that it cannot dissociate. This statement is not true, right? Because they can. They form a normal salt when all replaceable hydrogen of the acid is removed. That's true, right? Their anions can dissociate to give hydrogen ions, right? That's sounding kind of true as well, right? And they are not capable of generating a normal salt. This statement is untrue. So the answer is 2 and 3, which is C, right? The answer is C. Right? And the last, well, question 50. Which of the following compounds does hydrogen have a negative oxidation number? Right? Which one is the answer for question 50? Right, I've seen a lot of D's as the answer. Let's see if that makes sense. So you need to know your rules for oxidation numbers, right? And hydrogen has a negative oxidation number in something called a hydride, right? So there's a type of compound called a hydride. In this case here, NaH is a hydride. So it's going to be D as my answer, right? The answer is D. So that's question 50. Question 51 and question 52. Question 51. When an exothermic reaction occurs, what happens? When an exothermic reaction occurs, what happens? Right, people getting the answer as B. Let's see if that's making sense. So exothermic reaction. once you have an exothermic reaction, energy is released to the environment. So therefore the answer has to be B, right? The answer is B. What about 52? Which of the following observations is expected with electrolysis of concentrated sodium chloride solution using graphite electrodes? Question 52. Right, somebody's asking explain D. They said when an exothermic energy is released from the products. Well, the energy released in a right, so okay, so people are asking what's the difference between the answers for B and D. So in B they said release to the environment. So when you have an exothermic reaction, overall, right, overall what happens is that energy is being released to the surroundings. Right? Now, in any chemical reaction, you have bonds being broken and you have bonds being formed, right? In all chemical reactions. When you break a bond, you require energy. And when you form a bond, energy is released. So depending on how many bonds you break and how many bonds you form, your overall reaction could be endothermic or it could be exothermic, right? Now, in this question here, they said energy is released to the environment. That makes sense. B makes sense. But D now, they said energy is released, energy is released from the products, right? Yes, energy might be released from the products, but we need to consider what's happening to the reactants as well, right? So the best answer here, right, based on what is in the syllabus is going to be B. But I agree with you, D sounds kind of correct too, right? Right? Question 52. Let me see what you all said for 52. Which are the following observations? So every time I have an electrolysis question to analyze, I always draw a diagram. Always. Right? I don't just guess what the answer is supposed to be. I always draw a diagram in order for me to analyze what's happening. Right? So we have this here. Now, solution wise, so this is plus, this is negative. What are we using here? Concentrated sodium chloride. So NaCl, right? Aqueous, right? But it's concentrated, right? So in terms of ions present, we have Na plus, right? You will have Cl minus, you will have H plus from the water, and you have OH minus from the water, right? Based on what we know about concentrated sodium chloride, what is going to be discharged is that you're going to get Cl minus is going to come out, right? Cl minus is going to come out and not the OH minus, right? And H plus is also going to come out, right? So those are your two ions that are going to be discharged. So chlorine is evolved at the anode. So that's Cl minus. So Cl minus is going to come here, right? So that making sense. And I'm making sense, right? So 52A makes sense already, but let's check all the other answers. pH of the solution decreases. Now, if the pH of the solution decreases, that means that it is becoming more acidic, right? The solution is becoming more acidic. Now, since we know that H plus is going to be discharged, it means that the H plus ions are going to decrease in solution. So this makes no sense. This is wrong, right? Oxygen is evolved at the anode. Nope, that's not going to be evolved because we're using concentrated sodium chloride. So that's out. Sodium, nope, sodium is never discharged, right? So this is out. So the answer is A. Question, what was the last one here? 53. And question 54. Right, question 53 here, guys. What is the answer for this one here? Solution X is added to acidified aqueous potassium iodide, which is brown, which turns brown, sorry. Addition of starch to the solution results in a dark blue coloration. It is possible that X contains what? Question 53. Alright, somebody's asking, how do you know which ions are discharged? That's something you would have had to learn, guys. Right? There's about 5 electrolysis you have to learn for the exam. And what is discharge is dependent on the concentration of the ions. It is also dependent on the position in the electrochemical series, right? And it's also dependent on whether we use an active or inactive electrodes. Right, question 53. Sorry. All right, I've seen a lot of D's. Let's see that making sense. So the first thing is potassium iodide. Right? Now they told you that you got a brown solution, right? So if you got a brown solution from this, it means that I2 is produced, right? Iodine is produced. And then when you add starch, so iodine plus starch, you get this blue-black complex, right? So you get this blue-black coloration. So we know for certain that this is iodine here. So what has happened is that the I minus has been converted into I2, right? So you went from oxidation state -1 to 0. So when you go from -1 to 0, you are being oxidized. So therefore, what happened here is that solution X had to be an oxidizing agent, right? So the answer is D. All right, so the answer is D for that one. What about 54? In which of the following substances will electrolysis not occur when an electric current passes through it? So which will electrolysis not occur? I had a lot of people saying the answer is B. Yeah, I agree too, because solid sodium chloride, an electric current cannot pass through solid sodium chloride, right? So solid sodium chloride is not a conductor, right? Question 55 and question 56. Which of the following factors will increase the rate of the catalytic decomposition of hydrogen peroxide? Question 55. Right, people get an A as the answer. Yeah, increase in temperature obviously increases rate. What about question 56? Which of the following is an amphoteric oxide? Right? There are 4 different oxides you all need to know for the exam. Amphoteric, neutral, basic oxide, and acidic oxide. Right, people saying the answer is B. Yeah, it is aluminum oxide. So there are 3 amphoteric oxides, right, that we need to know about. That is zinc oxide, lead oxide, right, and aluminum oxide, right? Those are amphoteric oxides, right? Meaning that they react with both acids and alkalis in order to produce a salt, right? That's what an amphoteric oxide is, right? So that's 56. Question 57. Which of the following best represents an exothermic reaction? Which of the following best represents an exothermic reaction? right? So people saying the answer is A. So exothermic reaction, energy is released to the surroundings. They said best, right? So the only one that kind of makes sense here is E, right? It has to be E. So that's 57. All right, let's call this 58. And let's call this 59. Right, question 58 here, right? We have a graph here, right, showing boiling point and number of carbon atoms, right? For those students who are in my chemistry class, just pay attention to this question, right? There was a typo in the assignment that I gave you guys, right? Right, Ricardo, we just have 4 kinds of oxides. We have neutral oxides. They don't react with acids or alkalis, right? When it comes to acidic oxides, they react with alkalis, right, to give us, you have a reaction taking place there. When it comes to amphoteric oxides, and that's zinc, lead, or aluminium, they can react with sodium hydroxide or they can react with an acid, right? So amphoteric means you can react with both. That's what it means. All right, so for this question here, they said which alcohol, right, has a boiling point of 180. So what we need to do, we need to read off where is 180 on this diagram, right, 180 degrees. So we have 150, 160, 70, 80, right? So 180 is here, right? Now that's going to correspond to 7 here, right? So what you need to do, you need to read off where the 180 degrees is, right? Now I just reading something here, and they have slight versions to this question. I just realized that, right? There are slight versions to this question because there's a question where they had the temperature as being 160 degrees, right? So watch out for that, eh? So those of you who like to learn off the answer, be careful. This is 180 degrees. So that means as here, and that corresponds to carbon 7, right? So which one is going to be the answer for question 58 here? Right, so be careful, eh? Some of you all learn of the answers for this one here, but this one here corresponds to 7, right? So the only one that gives us that here is going to be D, right? D is the one that has 7. Right, so just remember, there's another version of this question here. I just realized that, right? Because my class asked me about this today, right? So there's one where the boiling point is 180, and there's one where the boiling point is 160, right? What about question 59? All members of a homologous series have similar what? Right, people can see, yes, it has to do with chemical properties, right? Chemical properties. Now, there's a particular question here that I have that I want to do. Where is it? That's this question, right? A lot of people ask me about this particular question here. Right, so let's call it 60. All right, which of the following aqueous solution contains 1 mole of hydrogen ions, right? So I saw a lot of people asking me about this question today. So let's start with each of them, right? Now we want to know which one contains 1 mole of hydrogen ions. So for A, right, we have the concentration as being 0.5 mole per dm cube. So that means that 1 dm cube, right, corresponds to 0.5 moles HCl, right? So therefore, if we have 2 dm cube, so 2 dm cube, that's twice the amount, you're going to get 1 mole HCl, right? So far so good, right? Looking like A could be the answer, right? But let's double check the others as well. when it comes to sulfuric acid, the concentration is 1 dm cube, right? And that corresponds to 0.5 moles H2SO4, right? So therefore 2 dm cube, right? And 2 by this will give me 1 mole. So what you're going to get here is 1 mole of sulfuric acid, but the question says 1 mole of hydrogen ions, right? Now HCl, this is what HCl does. HCl will produce H plus and Cl minus, right? But sulfuric acid doesn't do that though. Sulfuric acid will give me 2H plus, right, plus SO4 2 minus, right? So therefore, this cannot be an answer. This cannot be an answer because you have 1 mole of H2SO4, but it is producing 2 moles of H plus, right? So this is out, right? This is out. Now, I'm not too sure. I know who asked me one of this question today. This is, I don't know if Anaya here, right? But I know you asked me this question today, right? So I hope you're in class here. So it's not B, can't be B, right? If we change this now, let's look at C now. So for C, we have concentration of the sulfuric acid is 1 mole per dm cube, and you have 1 dm cube here. So therefore, this here will correspond to exactly 1 mole sulfuric acid, right? But the way how sulfuric acid ionizes, you're going to get 2H plus here, right? So therefore, this is out as well. C is out as well. That can't work, right? Now, when you do the calculation for D, right, you're going to get the same 1 mole of ethanoic acid. But there's a problem with ethanoic acid. And the reason for this is this. Ethanoic acid ionizes, right? And it gives me H plus, and it gives me CH3 COO minus, right? Now the problem is you are not going to get exactly a 1-to-1 ratio here. This is partially ionized. So this answer is out. So the answer is E for this question, right? So those of you who don't know the working for this, right? The answer is going to be E. Oh, no problem, Anaya, right? But I hope the answer makes sense, right? But ethanoic acid, even though you do the calculation with the ethanoic acid, you're going to get 1 mole of ethanoic acid, but because it only partially ionizes, that can't be the answer, right? So the answer is going to be A instead, right? Right? So that's question 60, right? There's more than 60 questions I have here, don't worry, right? So let's call this 61, right? Let's call this, sorry, hold on. Let's call this 61, right? Let's call this 62, and then we'll call this one here 63, right? So question 61, right? 61 and 62 are based on this diagram here. So we have ethene, right? And we're showing us some reactions here. Product 1 is what? What's the answer for question 61? Right, so a lot of people getting right, a lot of people getting B for the answer. Let's see if that makes sense. All right, so we're starting off with ethene here, right? And you're adding water to it, right? That's a hydration process here. And you're going to get an alcohol, so it has to be ethanol. So B is the correct answer, right? The product polyethylene is what? That's a good one. Question 62. The product polythene is what? What are they talking about here? All right, question 62. A lot of people telling me the answer is C. Yeah, I agree. The answer is C, right? So polythene, right? Think of polythene as plastic. Plastic is a solid, right? It's not a liquid, right? It's not a liquid. Ethene is a gas, right? But when it polymerizes, it forms a solid. What about question 63 here? They want to know what homologous series does this thing belong to, right? This one. Question 63, to which homologous series does this compound belong to? Right, people says A, right? They're saying A, I agree. It's an acid because of the COOH group. That's correct. Right, that's 63. Question 64 and question 65 and question 66. So question 64, we have an organic acid plus an alcohol. It gives me ester and water. The forward reaction is called what? Question 64. Right, so a lot of people getting C. Yeah, the forward reaction is called esterification. And what is the reverse reaction called? What is the reverse reaction called? Right, people saying the answer is B. Yeah, I agree. It's hydrolysis. So the forward reaction is esterification and the reverse is hydrolysis. What about question 66? Which of the following reactions occurs between propene and bromine? Which of the following reactions occurs between propene and bromine? What are they talking about here? Right, tons of people saying A is the answer. Yeah, it's called addition, right? This is an alkene and you're reacting it with bromine, so it's an addition, right? So that's 66. 7. Right, question 67. When large alkane molecules are cracked, the products are a mixture of what? There are many different versions to this question here, question 67, right? Right, everybody tell me the answer is D. So small alkene and also alkane, sorry, and alkenes. So the answer is D. Yeah, that's correct. What about 68? Which of the following reagents can be used for converting ethanol to ethanoic acid? So you want to convert ethanol to ethanoic acid. How can we do that? Question 68. We only have a few more questions, guys. All right. Right, so question 68, a lot of people saying the answer is C. Yeah, it is C. We need an oxidizing agent to convert ethanol to ethanoic acid, right? So the answer is C. What about 69? Fermentation of sugars using glucose as a substrate can be represented by So I think you all got a question like this in the paper too. What's the equation for fermentation? Right? A lot of people say the answer is C. Yeah, the only one that gives me ethanol is C, right? So it has to be that, right? So that's 69. Question 70. Question 71. Question 72. Right? What about 70 here? Glucose is converted to starch or cellulose by what? We use H3PO4 when we're trying to convert, when you're converting ethene into ethanol. That's when we use H3PO4. It's H3PO4, 70 atmospheres, and 300 degrees Celsius, right? That's when you want to convert ethene into ethanol. Right, so glucose into starch, right? So a lot of people saying the answer is D. Yeah, it is D, right? It's a condensation polymerization taking place there, right? Glucose into starch. Question 71. Which of the following features belong to metals? Which of the following, right, features belong to metals, right? So just put Q71 so I can tell which to separate the answers, right guys? Right, so 71, let me see what happened in here. Right, so a lot of people saying that the answer for 71 is D. So they form solid chlorides. So think of a metal. Sodium, if I react that with chlorine, I'm going to get sodium chloride. That's a solid. So we can say yeah. Form basic oxides. Yes, sodium oxide is basic. Magnesium oxide is basic. Conducts electricity when molten. That's true for metals. So it's all of them, right? So it's D. It's 1, 2, and 3. What about 72? Which of the following processes produces a gas which is different from the others? Alright, so a lot of people saying the answer is B. Yeah, it is B. Because in respiration, we get CO2, right? Heating calcium carbonate, you get CO2. Oxidation of carbon monoxide, you get CO2. And photosynthesis in plants, you get oxygen, right? So the answer is B. So that's 72. This here is 73. Right, question 73. Which of the following will not displace hydrogen from dilute hydrochloric acid? What's the answer for that one? Right, right, so people saying the answer is C for copper. Yeah, I agree. Copper is below hydrogen, so it'll never displace hydrogen from an acid. So that's 73. What about 74? Which of the following methods is used for the extraction of aluminium? Question 74. Right, 74, everybody saying A. Yeah, I agree. It's electrolysis. Aluminium is extracted by electrolysis. What about 75? Which of the following statements about sulfur are true? Right, which of the following statements about sulfur are true? Right, so 75, I've seen people saying B. So used to vulcanize rubber. Yep, we use sulfur to do that. Used in the extraction of iron from the iron ore. Nope, we don't use sulfur in that at all. Used in the manufacture of explosives. That is true. We use sulfur to make explosives, right? So I'd say 1 and 3, which is B. Yeah, I agree. What about 76? Which of the following substances conducts an electric current but remains chemically unchanged? What are they talking about here for 76? You need cryolite for the extraction of aluminium from bauxite. Right? Cryolite is for extraction of aluminium. Right? So 76. Ooh. Right? 76. The majority of you all saying the answer is B. Yeah, I agree the answer is B. Right? They said which one will conduct. Right? Aqueous copper 2 sulfate will conduct, but it's going to decompose. Right, because of electrolysis, so A is out. Copper is a conductor, but it's not going to decompose during electrolysis, right? All right, guys, so this is as much time as I have for tonight, right? This is as much time as I have for tonight. So I've done about 70 something questions with you guys here, right? So my feeling is that practically all 60 questions are going to repeat, right? So all I can tell you is to read your questions carefully, underline important words, right? And good luck in your exam tomorrow, right? Please remember to hit like and subscribe. And those of you who are interested in online classes, right? My number is on top, right? My new classes will begin in August. That's a new class for Form 4 students, right? So, like I said, this is all the time I have to give you guys, right? So enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everybody. Good luck in your exam, right? You all should be able to mash it up, man, right? So take care, guys. Good night, everybody. Be safe. Right?